It's now 7 o'clock, so I'm going to call this meeting to order. The Marilyn and Joan, keep right on going, just listen. Yep, the meeting is called to order. The item 2.0, adjustments to agenda, we're going to add item, item 6.5, VHI proxy. VHI, Vermont Educational Health something.
Initiative, maybe?
Initiative. Yes, Vermont Educational Health Initiative proxy as 6.5. Are there any other adjustments to the agenda?
Not an adjustment, but I just wanted to warn people that I'm timekeeping starting tonight. So if you see me going like this, it's not that we're writing notes to each other, other than maybe to say, you've got 5 minutes, something like that. Just wanted you to know.
Senior privileges on the action matter. Senior privileges on the action matter. Makes sense.
Do we have to vote on it?
No. Okay, so I guess, well, you do approve it.
We do.
For it.
Yeah, we do, but we also, as an adjustment to the agenda, we're gonna add senior privileges. And we'll do it, we have to take a vote on it and approve them, but we'll do it as 5.2 principals report, and
Okay.
Jeff can just add it to the end of the principals report. And I think, thank you. I think that's it for adjustments to the agenda. Except Lorna has,
Have a representative who's going to the VSBA annual meeting to be able to vote on policies and things like that. It was not clear, now that I think about it, but
all I have is a VHI proxy or certificate of authority. So, but we can certainly, if we have people going to the VSBA annual meeting, we can certainly delegate authority to act on behalf of our board. And we'll do that at the same time, 6.5. Okay, Leah said I've used up enough time with this.
Didn't say it yet.
You didn't give him the signals.
The audience and communications, item 3.0. There being none, we have an audience member though.
Hi, I'm Rachel Birch, and I'm the new Latin teacher at CVU.
Rachel,
Welcome.
thank you for joining us.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, anytime you want to jump right in, just say something.
Okay.
You'll be just like the rest of the board, you can interrupt me, get in anytime.
Good to know.
He retaliated.
My college diploma is in Latin, I may have to bring that to you for interpretation.
I'll have to check whether it's correct.
A couple of things during communications, I just want to remind people, because I think a lot of us may have missed this, there's a CVU special meeting, information meeting for the bond vote on October, for the bond vote. It's going to be October 29, 5:30 p.m. It has not yet been
29th or
determined.
28th?
28. Thank you.
Monday.
28th at 5:30 p.m. The exact location has not been determined, but if you want to get that into your calendars, it'll be here at CVU, probably in room 140, but we'll find out eventually. The second thing is there's an education quality standards public hearing at CVU. I have October 21 at 4 p.m. If anyone is interested in attending. That came out of the Colt report.
David, I have a question.
Yes.
Are we no longer getting the full report in our, I thought last year we.
I got the Colt report in my packet.
the CSSU with the CVU.
The,
CVU packet.
You did?
I thought.
Oh, it is.
I think it was in the CVU.
Yeah, no, it
was.
is, okay, yep.
For clarification, the Colt report is the CSSU report, and we typically, we're supposed to have it distributed with our materials, because reading it is extremely useful in getting some background on what CSSU is doing.
It's abbreviated in CVU.
Yeah,
Yeah, tomorrow.
yeah. Yes, I think it doesn't have all the principals' reports attached. But if you're interested in those principal reports, you just need to go to the CSSU agenda, and you can get it, have it come up on your screen or print it out. The next item is presentations, and we're going to have a presentation on the professional development plan, standards in the Common Core, and it looks to me like Jeff is getting ready to do the honors.
Jacob, can you just say what, there was another meeting, the 21st on standards?
Yes, I'm sorry, education quality standards, there's a public hearing at CVU. It's October 21 at 4 PM.
And who's giving that? Who's doing that?
I think the Department of Ed, but it's in the Colt report.
Okay, thank you.
And Jeff,
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate being given this opportunity to share with you some of the goals that we have for professional development this year. If you remember correctly, last year at the end of the year at the retreat, we shared quite a bit of information with you about some of our beliefs and what has evolved into. And I'm going to narrow that focus a little bit more for you tonight and try to be more tangible in terms of what it looks like in our professional development throughout the year. And Leah, if you do me a favor, in 15 minutes from now, tell me I have 5 minutes left, because I'm not going to go over it, okay? I can stop whenever we do this thing. Okay. So I started with the faculty talking about the goals for this year. And the primary goal is to execute the next phases of Evolve. And I'll show you what those phases are tonight. As you remember, the 3 prongs of Evolve, they were standards-based learning, goal, and the view. Goal will remain a committee. We have a great committee with 9 students on this committee. They're really pretty fired up about their task this year, and we've got more and more people starting to pilot this. So they will remain a committee and continue their work outside of professional development time. As you probably remember, the electronic portfolio, we call it CVU, we piloted it last year, and the information we got from the pilot was pretty clear, and it was that students felt as though there wasn't enough relevance, and that the portfolio was not emphasized enough in the classroom, the day-to-day learning that was happening in the classroom, and that to do this well and to not overload our faculty and our students, it's best to start integrating the portfolio into the work we're already doing and to begin that process in the core. And so we are looking at some ways to accomplish that. So that means that this year the primary focus is on standards-based learning. So we've really narrowed it. Every professional development is about SBL. Okay? So I'm going to briefly just talk a little bit about the evolution of standards here. A lot of people think it's a pretty recent phenomenon, but I started teaching here in 1993, and at that point I was working in the core, and we already had our own standards that the core created, just our own. There were way too many of them, and they were convoluted, and what we did is twice a year we'd get together and argue about where each kid fell on the continuum and gave out those reports. Soon after, the frameworks came into play, and NECAP became the accountability tool for the frameworks. But what we found, and this is back in Val's days, mid-90s, was that the frameworks were pretty untenable for us. They were very massive, they were difficult to work with the language, it was not a student-friendly language. And so the decision was made to create our own local standards that we called ESLs, Expectations for Student Learning. And so from about the mid-90s till now, those have been our primary standards. But as you know, recently, there have been some external sources involved, and there's new sets of standards that we are having to figure out how to integrate into our practice. And so that's Common Core, which obviously our state has adopted, and SBAC is now the accountability tool for Common Core. So next year, 2015, will be the first year we will take the SBAC. This is the last year of NECAPS. Okay? And I should back up. NECAPS for Science will still continue next year, but not for the other three, writing, reading, and math. Good there? Okay. Oh, and I threw in another standard too. NASP is the national phys ed standards. So we're using those as well. And next gen, let me just back up so I can show you. Next gen are the new science standards that just came out this year. So where our system has been using standards, using primarily ESLs, and now we are trying to figure out how to use these external standards that we've been informed we must use, and we must figure out how to integrate them into our instruction. Okay? So what we learned about standards. What we learned about our ESLs were that they were endpoint standards. I always prided myself on being the guy who was using standards the most in the classroom, even in the early 90s when they were new to us. And yet, all the time, I'd have 4 10th grade classes, and I would be using these rubrics that were our ESLs, and they were endpoint standards. At the top, they said a CVU graduate will. And yet, I was assessing 10th graders on this. And I was telling them, you meet the standard, good job. And fortunately, none of them said that means I should graduate, right? Because it says a CVU graduate. So we really struggled with that because we got to define the continuum. And so what we realized was we better define what it looks like for a 9th grader, a 10th grader, et cetera. So we created scales, grade level scales is what we call them. And so we said, this is what it looks like for a 9th grader, and it's different than what it looks like for a 10th grader, and so on. Then what we discovered, and this is pretty recent, only last year I think it was last year that we finally bumped up against this, and it was kind of an epiphany for us. And that was, we had a lot of teachers saying to us, okay, I love the 9th grade scales, but it's November, and I'm still assessing them on an endpoint scale for the 9th grade in November. Theoretically, nobody should be meeting, almost nobody should be meeting the standard in 9th grade. And everybody's grades are going to be lousy for a while. And so we realized what you have to do then is to define it. What does it look like each unit? So what does the learning look like within the umbrella of the standard and the scale for each unit? And the analogy that we use that really seems to be working for people is if your 9th grade scale, let's say, or your endpoint scale was that you're going to run a marathon, okay? You would not judge somebody in November saying, can he or can't he run a marathon? You would say, can he or can't he run 7 miles? Or whatever the training regimen would be, okay? So our next job was to create those things, and they're called learning targets. And so we developed unit-level learning targets. Okay, and you're going to see an example of those in a bit. So that's the work that we've done so far and the things that we've learned. But not everybody's done all this work, okay? And you'll see some examples of where people are. So where we are, also, there's a number of different levels people can be at in doing this work. And one of the first step in the process is to identify the standards that align with your course. So we created these course KUDs, and that D is the do column. And what we've done is we've gone back and reshaped a lot of the Ds now that we have these external standards. And we've aligned and said, okay, what we did 2 years ago was we took the Common Core, the ESLs, did a gap analysis, and found out where those gaps were and what was represented in the Common Core that was not necessarily represented in our local standards. And so the work has been find out what it is that you really want to own from these external sources, these external standards, and put them into your course KUDs. Okay, so some people are working on that. And then you have to identify what meeting these standards looks like in your class. So that's now the scale. So then what does it look like for a 9th grader or 10th grader? And then what does it look like for the unit, each unit you teach? So what's it look like in November compared to what it looks like in April? Okay. Another level of the work is to differentiate instruction based on the data you're going to get from your learning targets. So you're going to have much more discrete information about students. What are you going to do with it? That's great to do all that, and it's good information. But if you don't take the students who are not meeting a particular target and then change your instruction for them and address that, then you haven't really used the standards correctly. And so this is the most powerful thing about using standards, is to identify the discrete skills and tasks that students still need reteaching, intervention, whatever the case may be, to make sure that they are given the opportunity to learn and grow.
Can I ask a question now?
Sure. No, jump in, please.
Yeah, we're rolling.
Please,
We're really
jump
not-
in. I know.
I'm waiting for you to trip over those
No,
lines.
yeah, it's a matter of time.
Distracting.
The more questions you ask, more likely I'm to back up. So,
Identify the standards in line with your courses. Where does administration, I assume, at some point says, well, here's a standard that doesn't seem to align with any course, we gotta put it somewhere.
yeah, that's a great point, and I think it's happening within departments some departments are further along than others. But that's exactly what we're starting to do, is once we've created all these KUDs, they look at them, and I think 2 departments last year did an audit. Okay, then how do we think they're representing, and what really was good was just having a conversation with each other to find out what it is that we've determined we are assessing and we are instructing.
But I know that kneecaps did, I assume the SBACs will too, you'll be able to, whichever results, look at it and say, oh, well,
Yes.
here's a standard that we're really weak on, how do we beat it up?
That is definitely the theory, and I know next month I'm going to do a thing on Common Core where we're going to really talk about SBAC. Although we're not nearly as informed about it as we'd like to be, but very few are at this point.
The whole system is really powerful in theory.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah. So the last thing is, okay, we've got all this information, how do we share it with students, families, advisors? And so that's the part I want to show you. And so what I'm going to do now is pass you out a hard copy, because I think it might be a little bit tough to read on the screen. Let's see. Sure, you have. Who does not have? Figure it out. Yeah, thank you, Maggie. And I should probably point out that this is really probably new learning for a lot of for our 2 students over here, because this is really this year and last year that a lot of this progress has taken place. Okay, so what you've got in front of you is an SBL report. And so let me just open up one I've got. Actually, I won't bother, you've got it in front of you. Yeah. I've got one, I think. Yes, excellent. Did you do that?
Nope, I'll take one after.
Okay. Okay, so this is an actual standards-based learning report, first time that we've sent these out. Okay, and this is for the first unit for a social studies course.
Can I ask you something?
Sure.
How many units do you think teachers teach in 1 year?
Really varies, dependent upon the course. Science units tend to be a lot longer than some of the others, but typically 3 to 5 weeks are most. But like a science teacher, if he or she's doing an 8 or 9 week unit, they're still expected to report on progress within 4 weeks.
Okay, so most of the time, somebody will get one of these at least every 4 weeks?
Yeah, that's the kind of the window. We didn't say 4 weeks on the nose, but we said between 3 and 5 weeks that you should be hearing from your teachers. Okay? So let me just walk you through this a little bit. So this is the first time we've done this. And what we typically would do with the other system, and still a lot of the students are living the other system, all I would get as an advisor and a parent is that A-. Core social studies A-. I might have a comment, like blank showed nice progress improving the detail of his written work. But that's about all the information I would have had as a parent and a student. Notice, Gene, I did not trip on that. Well, it's coming. So, as an advisor, here's what I would say to this student. You got an A- in course social studies. Nice job, buddy. That's great. Must be you like this course. Good. Here's the conversation we had the other day when I looked at this. Hey, I'm really proud of how hard you work, Your habits of learning were dead on. These are skills that are going to be great for you the rest of your career and even after high school. And it's awesome that you did this well. A- is a great score, a great grade to have this early. I noticed there were only 2 areas where you haven't met the standard yet, and they're both about reading. What do you want? Help me out here. And the kid said, I don't really like to read all that much. I kind of struggle with understanding what's going on. And I said, so what are you doing about it? I've met with my teacher, we're working on main ideas, and the next time I have a summary, I'm going to meet with the teacher ahead of time to have them look over my summary. It's a very different conversation than we've ever had in the past. And, you can do, and I have a son who's a freshman, and we had some very specific things where I would say to him, hey, did you bring home X and Y? Because those are the things you need to practice. Okay, instead of, did you bring home science homework? It's a different kind of conversation. So, this is what we are now doing. And so now let me show you how that fits into everything else.
Jeff, are these
Sure.
self-assessments?
I'm sorry?
Self-assessments or
No, this is the teacher's
just the
assessment.
teacher?
Yeah.
And does the student do this when you have that conversation or?
You know, that's up to the teacher. There are a lot of teachers who do self-assessments.
I've included self-assessments.
Rachel's included it, and I'm about to talk about the group that Rachel's with. So we have 3 distinct units, and you saw all the levels that people were, and now I'm going to explain who's at what level. Core. They are now doing completely standards-based learning for all classes and all units. And they're driven by learning targets that are aligned with the standards, whether it's an ESL, Common Core, Next Gen, or NASP. Standards-based grade reports, which you're looking at, are shared with students, parents, and advisors at the end of each unit. Okay, so that's where core is. CWG, we have a collaborative work group. These were teachers who volunteered to say, I want to do standards-based learning in at least one class, and learn that way. So, and Rachel is in this group, and there's a group of, what is it, about 15 to 20 teachers, I believe, are doing it? Okay. And they're up, like I said, they're executing standards-based learning, exactly what you're looking at for one class minimum. Okay? And then the rest, and that's about 40 teachers, a little over 40 teachers. So that leaves the upper house, which is the largest group of teachers, and they're in a lot of different places, as I showed you before. And there's a list in the principal's report, and I can pull it up real quickly here for you. So we've got this great CVU Learns site. It's got a lot about standards. And this is an example of what teachers would work on. We've got a list of standards-based learning tasks. The teachers work on these tasks with colleagues from like courses, and they check off which things they worked on each day. They fill in with whom they worked and ask any questions, and then they give the products they produce in their professional development to us, and we upload them onto the CVU Learn site to create a bank of resources for everybody. Sure, beautiful. I think it's going to work. Okay. So, Common Core. With the advent of Common Core, we do have to figure out what to do about how to integrate it into our practice. And so what we're doing this year is we decided that the departments, each department would discuss ways to approach preparation for the SBAC. And next time we meet, I'll show you some of those things that we've done in preparation. And that link is a link to all the examples that teachers have already created for their students, where they have taken an SBAC release task and have modeled the work they do after the SBAC release task, so that the kids are getting very used to the formatting of it and the inquiry, and it's a lot about informational reading and informational writing. And I'll share, like I said, much more detail with you next time. And the groups are continuing to work on learning targets aligned with the Common Core to improve student learning.
Jeff?
Yes.
What does SBAC stand for?
So Smarter Balanced is, I'm not sure what the, what all the letters stand for. I just know that they're gonna call it the SBAC, and that's the new measurement, yeah, the new kneecap. Kneecap had such a cool ring to it, too. Okay, so you saw this last year at the end of the year in the retreat, and Stan and Emily, I think, were showing it to you, and we were telling you where people were in the building, and everybody was one column over to the left at that point. So we're pretty proud that only a couple months later of school, we've moved everybody at least one column. And I should restate, they've moved themselves at least one column. And our goal is to get everybody into that fourth column. And what we've learned from this work is that to get any kind of significant change to stick, the people involved who are executing the change have to believe in it, have to play a huge role in decision-making, and have to ask for it. And so we're trying to create a climate and look at the bright spots and really share a lot of the resources so that people are coming to us at the end of this year and saying, here's where I think I am and here's what I think I'm ready for next, as we continue to try to implement standards-based learning. How'd I do on time?
Beautiful, early.
Can I ask you a question then?
Absolutely. Oh, I think we built in time for questions too. Yes.
You have 12 minutes.
Exactly. Go, Jane.
This is just sort of a general, but just curious, especially in social studies, how do you separate ability to write to understanding content?
Yeah, so what we're going to find is social studies, English, maybe some of the others are going to be more skills-based, and standards comes more easily for some of them. And I don't have one, but I can bring one next time, the science one. You'll see more content embedded into the science standards. And one of the things that we're noticing is that there needs to be a balance of the content with skills, and then what we're going to do is try and track those transferable skills. This particular program that we're using, it's called Jump Rope. It allows the 5 core teachers to say, here are all the transferable skills. So if I'm being measured on my writing in 5 different classes, you push a button and there's that one kid scores for all the classes on this transferable skill. So we can still say, here's what kind of reader, writer, speaker, listener you are. And yet, more discreetly, we can inform you on how well you are with certain content.
So the teacher would have to, in this situation, like on the first one, applying beliefs, maybe if the person's not a good writer, they might have to have a conversation with the student to see if they understand.
It's a great point, because as many of our teachers have pointed out, to demonstrate content, you have to demonstrate a skill.
Right.
And so are you assessing the skill or the content knowledge?
Right.
And so what we're trying to understand is that content is typically a step in the continuum, and it's how you apply that content that matters most. And so when you score somebody on a 4-point scale, for instance, often that 2 score is knowledge. The 3 score is application.
Oh.
And jump in anytime, Rachel, because you're doing it on a daily
try.
basis.
Okay, say I'm teaching Algebra 1. Okay.
I'm lost already, but go ahead.
And by January, 10% of the kids have met all the standards. Do they go take Algebra 2 then, in the middle of the year? And let me finish, since half the kids are gonna be below average, by the end of the year, say, I don't know, 10% or 20% have only met 3/4 of this standard. Do they go back and take Algebra 1 again?
Okay, so those are questions that are certainly long-term questions that we have to deal with eventually. Like, do we use these to move a kid through a system? A truly standards-based system, like one we visited last year in Maine, moves kids based on meeting standards.
Okay, so
Not
there's no
on,
more Algebra
not
2,
on how
no more
long you spend in the
geometry, no more-
classroom. We are a long ways from that. And to be honest, we weren't sold on what we saw. It was a lot of checklists, it was a lot of teachers sitting up at the top and grading people, and there wasn't that interaction, there wasn't enough direct instruction for my own liking. So there needs to be somewhat of a compromise there. To answer your first part of your question, that's where the differentiation comes into play. When a kid is nailing a standard right away, it's upon the teacher to then know what that next level of understanding and skill is, and then to ask the student to engage in that.
If I
Here's an example. Yeah, you want to give an example?
I have a great example.
Great. Love it when you bail me out like this.
Okay, so you can write these scales are on a 4-point they can be on a 4-point scale. So you can write the standards in such a way that there's a target standard that you want all students to meet, and that's usually gets put in the 3 column.
Yep.
But then you can write a number of standards in your 4 column that go beyond that standard. And depends, who knows, I don't think it's clear how we're going to grade that column, that beyond the standard column, but it does for me, right now even, provide me with work that I can give to students that are already meeting the standard and they can go beyond. And it also provides kind of a further reach for students too, so they don't feel like, oh, I just have to get this far and then there's nothing after it.
Right.
And to give you an example, as a teacher, and I've watched a teacher do this, gets some papers back or some kind of assignment, and they now will make 3 distinct piles. Here are the kids who are in the 2, here are the 3s, here are the 4s, and they build their instruction around those groups. And they say, here's what the 2s are doing tomorrow, here's what the 3s are doing tomorrow, here's what the 4s are doing tomorrow. And that can change from activity to activity.
Okay. So the other question I have is, so by end of October, you've got 100 kids in 100 different places.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, I tried this once back in the 80s.
Yep.
And it was a nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be one of the questions. What's the alternative? The alternative is, I'm going to teach the Middle Ages for 3 weeks, and then the next day I'm moving on to something else, whether you're with me or not.
Yeah, well, I agree.
Yes, Lisa?
So when I was a freshman, I really struggled with the interpretation and the analysis of the progress reports. And so I think as a student and a parent, by looking at this, I would be kind of confused, like, what does that mean? I mean, why did they get a 3.5 in that category instead of, you can't look at the points and see, oh, you missed points on that. It's kind of subjective with each teacher. So how does a parent and a student analyze this?
You want to answer that? You don't
No,
have
that's
to,
too
that's a tough one. The biggest shift since you were a freshman and experiencing some of this is now in the philosophy around practice versus summative. And so they're given plenty of opportunities to practice a particular skill. So if I'm going to base your grade on your summative and I'm going to assess these standards, I have to make sure that we've practiced these standards numerous times. And each time you've practiced those standards, I've provided you feedback that tells you exactly where you are after each practice piece, so that you start understanding how to interpret that, okay? And in many ways, it's no different than what it's always been. Teachers are still they're still asking questions and saying, you got these right and these questions wrong. But then they're translating into how it relates to each standard.
I think it's funny is people think they know why just give me an A? I know what an A is. Well, you don't really know what an A is, right? Or a B either. It's just, it's probably just as subjective. I agree when you can actually take you got an 89 out of 100, that's, but.
It's very tangible, and yet I could have thrown a dartboard and gotten the 89,
Right.
and I have no idea if you're 89, my 89 is right.
Right.
Any other questions?
One more question.
Sure.
I'm teaching chemistry, and the kids are
When are you
spread
gonna
out
say
all over
English?
the place. I don't understand English. I've struggled with English my whole life. I'm teaching chemistry. I've got kids spread out over half the curriculum. We're doing a lab today.
Okay.
It directly relates to chapter 6 in the chemistry book. I can't have kids doing 10 different labs 5 days a week, so I've got to set up lab 6.1 or whatever it is on this day.
Yep. All
Well,
right.
some kids haven't gotten to chapter 6 and have no idea what's going on. Some kids did chapter 6 4 weeks ago, and
Here's the
that's the
difference.
whole point of it.
Teachers don't say now, and these are just the ones that are using this, they don't build their lesson by saying, I'm working on chapter 6 now.
Right.
They say, for instance, I'm going to give you an example from the meeting we had yesterday, we're going to work on cause and effect today. And what we're going to use to study cause and effect, and I'm going to switch to a different topic, subject matter, is the Middle Ages. And so we're going to work on cause and effect. And so with your example with the labs, they can all still be doing a lab, but kids could be working on different standards in that lab. That's,
Okay.
it is a complete flip. Now, when you plan your lesson It isn't, what am I teaching? It is what standards are we learning, are we working on? And then what material am I gonna use to help them learn those standards and reach those standards? Oh, sorry, Lisa.
And then I have a question. What if the subject matter doesn't fall into the, would it be like an extra standards category?
What do you mean?
I mean,
Oh, I think I
the
do know what you mean.
sciences.
Okay. I would have a hard time coming up with standards that you can't necessarily find material to use to reach the standard? Is that, I don't know if I understood your question.
Science teachers are writing their own standards.
Yeah.
So science teachers don't necessarily have to use social studies standards.
Oh,
Is
right,
that
right.
Is that, does that get at your question?
Anyone else? Yeah.
And what I was gonna say is even us all as school board members, we're one unit, but we're individuals. So when you're giving us this information, Jeff, I interpret it my way, and I'm gonna ask a question, so you kinda know where I am in the gamut of
Right.
the big picture. Or, each of us will approach it differently. So my doing a science chemistry lab and you doing one, Ray, is, we're gonna be different. We might have everybody should be looking at cause and effect, but I'm looking at this kind of cause and effect because that's who I am. I can learn it more broadly, but we approach it, I think that, I don't know if that's helpful, but that makes sense to me.
For instance, I thought I understood this whole subject at a 3.8 level until Ray started asking questions.
Some self-assessment.
Back to two.
They're not, yeah,
I'm there too.
A lot easier to plow forward sometimes.
Do we have more questions for Jeff? This was absolutely terrific, Jeff.
Very helpful.
Incredibly helpful in terms of us understanding why we're confused. Actually, my confusion has diminished quite a bit, so thank you very much. And
Thank you, I appreciate the opportunity.
I just want to tell the board that I'm going to ask Jeff to put together progress reports for the board.
On social skills.
Social skills, interruptions.
As long as you honestly self-assess first. I'm okay with that.
Actually, I do have one more question.
Sure.
We have one more.
About this report?
Yeah.
So at the bottom is overall habits of learning mastery.
Yeah.
Those are assessed but not included in the assessment for the course, is that correct?
That's correct, and I will tell you that this is one of the most difficult things for our staff to grapple with. The core primarily is bought in, and that's where they are with this, because they did a lot of this last year. But one of the presentations that we're going to have towards the end of the year is possible implications of standards-based learning on the transcript. Because until, and this is my belief, until we have a way of reporting academic achievement separately from habits on the transcript, I feel uncomfortable telling a teacher that they can't include it in the grade, because it's not represented in any other manner.
Got it.
So one thing that has certainly changed is that we report it separately, we assess it separately, and we have minimized the impact that it has on grades. As you see with the one in front of you, it has no impact.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Last chance for questions. We're going to move on to reports to the board. And we're going to start with Alex and Lisa giving us the student council report.
Alright, so start off in student council. The other week, first week of October, we had a big club fair in Four Corners with all the different clubs represented, and had a table out and other information for students, especially like the underclassmen, the freshmen, and the sophomores, to sort of see what the different clubs had to offer. And it was a very lively atmosphere. Jacob Safari, who was in charge of the tech, he had his video club thing, and he had loud music, and it was like a concert pretty much, but it was pretty neat. And then looking more towards the future, Cafe for a Cause, which we do every year. I think towards the end of November or beginning of December is when we'll be doing that. And that's basically when one day all the proceeds and funds that are collected from Leo in the cafeteria will be donated to a cause. And last year we went to the Vermont Food Shelf, I believe, and in tomorrow's student council meeting, we're gonna finalize a cause for that. So that'll be exciting. I'll keep you posted with that. Now moving to the Athletic Leadership Council. The ALS walk last meeting talked about how we were going to do it. Well, we raised almost $2,000 for ALS research, which is exciting. And then this weekend's Coaches vs. Cancer for all the sports teams. On Friday night, the boys soccer and the field hockey have a game, home game. And then on Saturday, the varsity girls soccer team and the football team have home games as well. And they'll be wearing pink. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, so it's easy. A lot of stuff like at Dick's Sporting Goods, all the teams will be wearing like pink socks, pink, sweatpants, stuff like that. Also, the ALC will be selling T-shirts that say like CVU Athletics and then Coaches vs. Cancer. And it's basically just a big fundraiser to get money to go to the American Cancer Society. And last year we did it for the winter sports like hockey games and the basketball games where the teams wore pink jerseys and pink T-shirts. So we're starting this trend for every season, which is exciting. And last Friday we had a bake sale to sort of start off that whole event. We raised over $200 just from the bake sale. So hopefully with the T-shirt sales and outside donations, we'll be getting a lot more funds. All right, and then sports, boys soccer is unfortunately they lost their first game, but they're still riding strong. Girls soccer is still undefeated. Field hockey tied against Essex the other day.
But still undefeated.
But still undefeated, exactly.
Why Gene would know that?
I know. And then boys football is they're 4-2. They've lost the past 2 games, but hopefully we're bouncing back this weekend. Yeah.
Okay.
Volleyball, Lisa?
Yes,
Very
so
good.
volleyball is really exciting. We have games every Tuesday and Friday, and
What time?
4:30. But guys also play, so we play best 3 out of 5. Anyone knows volleyball. Anyways, we have lost one, but we've won the rest. And last Friday we played Mid-Vermont Christian School. The girls did, and they're #1 in the state, and we beat them. It was a really close game. Yeah, it was very exciting. It was intense. And then also going off of what Alex said about Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we're hoping to do a Volley for the Cure. Other states do that, but maybe a competition or a match where we support and raise money for breast cancer awareness. And
The volleyball club's also been like a really, centerpiece for like fans. Definitely, a few group of kids. For the guys and the girls, I think it's pretty neat to see a new club doing really well. So.
yeah, and this week and next week, today and tomorrow, juniors are taking kneecaps. I don't know what to add about that, but and the next Wednesday, juniors are taking the PSATs and the sophomores are taking the ACTs. Last week, Environmental Action Club had assemblies every day during advisory for all the different classes, going over the new trash bins, talking about what piece of trash goes in which container, and there was a fun trivia game for the whole class. And so it was really great to get the word out about the new trash systems. Yeah, that's about it.
Thank you very much, folks. Do we have questions or?
One last thing, the play Spam Lot as well is at the end of October. So there are definitely some more signs, but feel free to. They'll be doing the Friday, Saturday, Sunday showings as well.
And I think tickets go on sale next week. Yep, it's very exciting.
see if we can coordinate getting an email out about when tickets go on sale, because I'm pretty sure that I wouldn't know about this, but my spouse is trying to get tickets, so the information will get to me.
We had, the student council used to hold like a town hall kind of thing. Is there any talk about that? I can't remember much more about it, except that it was kind of powerful when it happened well.
Mhm.
I don't know. What that is.
We haven't had any talks yet. We can definitely bring that up, or just, ask and see what's, that is gonna be going on.
Thank you guys very much. We always appreciate hearing the information about what CVU is doing. I'm going to turn it over to Jeff for the principal's report.
Yeah, thanks to Lisa and Alex for covering at least 3 of the things I was going to touch on. Very efficient, I love it. So what I'd like to point out is professional development. The last piece is what the math teachers are doing, and they're working on something called best practices. And I won't get into it too much tonight because that's also in a subsequent presentation that's on the schedule. But there's a description of it in the curriculum instruction section, if you're interested. And Dan Shepherdson and Monica Carter are leading our math people through that, and they'll be the ones to come and speak to us when it's time to do the presentation. Okay? And then the last thing I want to point out is the outstanding teacher for CVU this year, the UVM outstanding teacher, is Sarah Crum, who's a special educator in Nichols House.
Do you have the date? I forget, I have it somewhere, but.
Of the UVM,
To go and attend, I'll look. in
I have an
the meantime.
invitation, it's in October, and it's,
I'll look, I've got it.
okay. So I think I'll talk about senior privileges.
Are you gonna talk about science?
Oh,
Science?
sure, go ahead.
No, do you have anything to say about them? They're kind of sad.
Yeah, what I can say is that I have very little context for how to interpret these and what to do with them. I do know I've passed them on to the science curricular director. She's gonna work with the science department on interpreting this and what we can glean from it. In my own study of it, I haven't come up with too many conclusions. We are still doing well relative to the state, but certainly there was a dip from last year. And the only thing that sort of stands out to me is that we had far fewer kids take the exam last year. But I don't know if that means, I don't know if that's a contributing factor or not, but I do know if that means 4 or 5 kids didn't take it all and that counts against us, that would have a greater impact than 5 kids not taking it out of the class who had 335.
Well, we were on a really nice trajectory, but if last year was just kind of
Yep.
a anomaly, was last year an anomaly or is this year an anomaly? It's,
It would be interesting going forward after these groups, kind of take it apart and analyze it, if you could let us know
Yep.
what their thoughts are and what we're gonna do going forward, because we were on such a great trajectory and it was so exciting.
and
I agree.
We've been changing our curriculum a lot in science. We added a lot of different classes and new
Yep.
classes, which were all really interesting as far as getting kids engaged in science, but I'm a little bit concerned
Yep.
if those classes aren't really rigorous enough. That's something we should correct sooner rather than later.
And I think it's fair to say that now the next gen is here, some of our science teachers are feeling the same way and starting to revisit the curriculum.
Jeff, I do have a question of something that you mentioned earlier.
Sure.
When the Common Core gets put into place, or SBAC, however you want to describe it, you
Sure.
said that that's only just for reading, writing, arithmetic, and are the juniors still gonna take the science kneecaps then?
They are,
That's,
and it's troubling because they're all going to be in the spring. Right now, science is in the spring and everything else is this week. But next year, everything will be in the spring. And the
so
same window with all the AP exams and spring sports. And
so there's no Common Core science? The only,
Next gen is a Common Core,
Ish.
I'm not exactly sure the relationship between the two, but I believe it's inspired by Common Core. They have not created an assessment yet.
It's
Okay,
been adopted by 6 or 7 states.
Yes,
So
next
it's-
gen's only been adopted by, I think even, maybe only 4 states. is what-
okay.
So it's, I think, next gen is something we're gonna find out about as time goes
Over the
on.
next 10 years.
If you
Okay,
look at senior
sure.
privileges,
So I'm going to pitch the senior privileges on behalf of the seniors because they came to me just today and had an influx of people getting all the paperwork in. So they were a little surprised, they were able to pull it off, but I told them I'd put it on the agenda. And you've been through this far more often than I have, so I'm just gonna read from some of this, but the proposal itself is that we hope the senior class of 2014 will be able to leave school grounds during their respective unscheduled blocks and return during school hours. This privilege would be specifically and only granted to the senior class. Underclassmen would continue to be restricted to school grounds. Privilege requirements: seniors must arrive to all classes and advisory on time, as is already expected. Seniors must behave appropriately while off campus. If a student's involved in illegal activities while off campus, senior privileges and the senior parking permit for that student will be immediately revoked. And seniors using their senior privileges must be in good academic standing as determined by the respective administrator in order to utilize senior privileges.
I need a motion to adopt the senior privileges for 2013-14. Did we get a motion?
Oh,
Yeah, you moved it?
Second.
Second? Some discussion on this?
Yeah, only that we go back and forth on, we say if it gets abused, they lose the privileges, and then too often we end up in discipline hearings where people are abusing it and we don't revoke the privileges. So I think the senior class just really needs to understand that this is not now you're free to leave the campus and have a great time. I mean, but if we have 8 people in the parking lot, and 6 of them are abusing the privilege, the other ones, there should be some peer pressure about, don't ruin it for all of us.
That's what I was wondering. I thought a number of years ago that my understanding was that anybody in the senior class abuses, that
Whole classes.
a whole class can use.
Right, and it's kind of up to the administration, if it's, but it seems to me that it was getting a little away from us.
Yeah, and my understanding would be that we deal with the individuals first, and then if there's a trend, then we address what Jean's speaking about.
If we could add that concept in the communication of the acceptance of the senior privileges,
I can. Yeah.
that would be terrific.
Mhm.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? The ayes appear to have it. The motion is carried. You have senior privileges. Don't screw them up, guys.
Thank you.
Lisa?
That was to the
Not
left.
directed to you.
That was not directed to you.
I have one of these. Yeah, now I have two. Yeah, all right. Committee reports, I think facilities we'll hear from when we talk about turf fields. Any of the other committees? Yeah, I got about 2 minutes if there's anything that you want to pass on to us. There being no committee reports, we'll go to CSSU debrief. Let me quickly summarize. During the CSSU meeting, we discussed purchase services. I won't go over that because we're going to go over that in item 6. For your information, the vision calendar has been tabled by the superintendents it will not be implemented in 2014-2015. That the implementation date has been tabled. They're going to look for more community input and factor that into whatever calendar 3.0 is. There's a vision calendar forum tomorrow night at CVU. I don't happen to know the exact time. 6:30. Anyone interested in the latest developments, you can show up here at CVU. Jeff talked about next generation science standards. We went over those in the CSSU meeting. The kneecaps in the K through 8s, there are some impressive results, some nice improvements, particularly, I think Charlotte and Williston and maybe one other K through 8 got a commendation letter from kneecap. Good news for us, annual AYP, we made AYPs. We're still a designated school because we have to meet the goal for a second year. But if we meet it this year, hit AYP, we're no longer identified and can join Charlotte as the other school in our district not identified. Charlotte cheats because they don't have enough of a subpopulation to be even in the program. We're gonna have a tech audit. The CSSU awarded that to Sandy Latham and Carol Valet. It's gonna have no budget impact for the upcoming budget year. Any recommendations that will have a budget neutral that can be implemented, Elaine may do that for the next budget year, but anything that will have a budget impact would be for subsequent budgets.
Just on that, just because I think it's interesting, is that technology audit came about because last year in the budget process, they were looking at adding a position at CSSU as a technology coordinator of some kind. I think it was supposed to be like more around curriculum, because we already have a hardware guy, right? And there was a lot of questions at the CSSU level board, and it kind of came back to what problem are we trying to solve? And so I thought this was a really good compromise to go figure that out first. So it should be really interesting. It covers like everything involved with technology, so it'll be.
And it's very nice to have some local folks doing the audit for us, very competent folks.
And there is some recognition that we can't have, well, it's interesting for the Kates to all implement technology in ways that they find works for their community. It causes a real problem for us when they get to the 9th grade in CVU and they don't have the same background, and so I thought that's a good recognition too.
Legislative breakfast is going to be set up for some time in January. I assume that Joan is on that committee setting that up. No, she's not. She's just helping to set it up. But she'll be there for grilling.
I just sent an email because there's usually the second Monday of the month, the Lake Champlain Regional Chamber does a breakfast, and we don't want to conflict with that.
Yeah.
So I just sent an email earlier at the CSSU meeting to see when that is. I don't have those dates yet.
Well, the date will be set up. There's a committee working on it, and we'll have the legislative breakfast sometime in January. The date will be announced. It's always great fun.
It's a Monday.
Yeah. The substitute teacher rate is staying the same, and it's going to be revisited next year. There was a proposal at the last CSSU meeting to make some changes. There was significant questions about it. So it's staying at the same rate for this year, and it's going to be revisited next year, well before the budget time. Act 153, as of July 1, 2014, our special ed professionals will become employees of the supervisory union. The central office leadership team is recommending that CVU retain our paras, but we get to make, retain our paras. It's a CSSU decision, but I'm assuming that our board would like us to retain our own paras for special ed. The reason that they made the recommendation is that we use paras in a lot of different ways, not only for special ed, but for 504. Some of the elementary schools use them to monitor the lunchroom. The central office team thought it would be a nightmare sorting that out for billing back purposes, so they would rather, they suggest that we keep our own, and I would assume that we would like to retain the flexibility.
That's our recommendation,
Yeah.
because we would lose the ability to use staff flexibly if we did that.
Yeah.
If we didn't.
So absent anything to the contrary, at the next meeting, our reps will tell the SU board that that's what CVU is inclined to do. We awarded the audit contract to R.H. Smith from a a new company. There was a fair amount of sentiment on the board to change auditors, not because there was any problem with our current auditors. We were very pleased with them, but in order to meet our fiduciary responsibilities and have a change and have someone else look at the books. That, Carrie, we have, Bob assured us that everyone who entered a bid was a highly competent firm, and so we have a new audit firm. And finally, the common topic was coordinated school health, and it's now 8 o'clock. I've gone through the summary of the CSSU for the debrief. There were 3 other members there. Does anyone want to throw in something quickly about what went on?
Nope, pretty thorough.
Thank you, and exactly on time, we're going to move on to 6.0, discussion matters.
County enforcement.
Sorry that you're taking a little grief.
I have these incredible bruises up and down my side of my leg.
As you can see, I would not do that tonight because it would hurt me, so that's not happening.
The SU purchase services were in your packet. We need to decide whether we're in and or out on the purchase services that apply to us. The purchase services, for background, these are services that are organized through the CSSU and typically by people employed by CSSU, and the services get allocated out to the various schools, and usually they're split either on use or ADM count. Information technology applies to us. Connecting Youth, CY, applies to us. I probably should note that it's likely that we're going to have an increase in our allocation, in our financial responsibility for Connecting Youth, because they're changing the way in which they're allocating the costs to reflect where the services are actually used. And I am told that the services are used more at CVU than they are in the K through 8s. So we can expect some increase, but your 4 representatives will be keeping a close eye on how much they try and increase with us. Food service is an allocated, a purchase service. Transportation's a purchase service. CIS EI is K through 8. We don't need to worry about that. Psychological services are purchase services. Occupational therapy services, purchase services. ELL, English language learners, purchase services that apply to us, and early learning partnership is K through 8. Is there any sense amongst our board that we would want to back out of any of these purchased services?
I don't know, what's a purchase service?
The transportation is a good example. Transportation is operated for 4 schools. Charlotta's not a participant. And we get billed on an hourly basis for our use of buses.
Oh, okay, so Ken Martin and all that crew work for Ken Martin Incorporated, they don't work for...
They're purchased from CSSU.
From CSSU, and then
Yep.
we get, we
CVU
buy the
purchases
purchases
from
from them.
CSSU.
Yeah, and then CVU pays CSSU.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
And then CSSU bills us according to the number of hours we use.
I understand, thank you.
And they're just different from the administrative because we have a choice on these. We could choose not to participate.
Yeah.
Do it internally if we wanted to.
Right, like Charlotte does.
But you
I
can't decide that you're not gonna
or
pay for a
somebody.
lane, you know, executive administration, we have to pay for.
And these purchase services have evolved over the years as benefiting from the economy of scale, and typically it benefits us to continue And like I said, your 4 reps to the CSSU board will keep a close eye on CY, and what happens with us there.
Well, see why I think, I'm just gonna bring it up to this point too. I thought what you had told me last time, because Joan and I, Joan and I both missed the budget meeting, and you fought tooth and nail, but I think what they ended up doing, instead of doing it over a K-12 ADM, they went to a 6-12 ADM.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And so now we pay for 2/3 of the CY budget.
Well-
But then you negotiated that they phased that in over 2 years or something?
No, I negotiated that we only pay half of that for
Half of the increase.
For this budget year. Half of the increase for this budget year. And then they were going to look at the way in which it was allocated to target it for where the services are actually used. And that's supposed to go into effect this year.
Okay, and that was, I know I
Or next
tied, I
year.
don't want to tie that because I tied the last board meeting. I never saw that second piece of it, Megan,
Yeah.
just to clarify for Bob. I understand what David and I just talked about is how what happened in the budget cycle. I just don't understand with all those 37 different programs going on in CY, what's getting allocated to us as just 2/3 peanut butter and which are we paying for?
Yeah,
That's,
and it's not supposed to be, straight ADM. It's supposed to be what we actually use.
but it
Which are
can't
the
all be that way,
programs,
Yeah.
right? It can't all be that way, and that's what I never really got my
Yes.
arms around. I
And
mean, if
I-
you're doing drug prevention, how can you say this is drug prevention program aimed at 10th graders versus 6th graders? I mean,
Yeah.
you should have a
Yes.
comprehensive drug program, right, drug prevention program.
Yes.
So that's the part I don't understand.
Yes, and you'll get that,
Yep.
from the central office, and that means Jean will lead the way as we protect CVU in these reallocations in CY. CY is extremely important, but we just need to understand how the costs are allocated to us. Then we'll pass on to Bob that we're still in on the purchase services. Next item is budget buddies. We have 2 so far. Vicky's going to join us, so we now have 3, and Polly will remember to send me an email so I can forward it on to Sandy.
Vicky's email.
Patrice? Yeah, with a copy to me would be good. And if you'd send an email to Sandy with a copy to me.
I think I sent the Sandy a copy.
Oh, okay, well, send me a copy so I can know. Are there any more?
My budget buddy from last year is not available
Okay.
on our meeting dates.
I'm trying to work on Alan Mead, but he doesn't seem that excited. Why, I do not know. He's so good with me.
Yeah, it would be great.
So I'll try him again. I got a vacation message last time. I didn't take it personally. I'll try again.
It would be nice to get a budget buddy from Heinsberg if we could. And if anyone else has any ideas on budget buddies, let us know, and we'll get out a package to them after our next board meeting.
David, just 2 things on
Yes.
dates. One is, did we move that Thanksgiving?
Yes.
We did.
We
Move it
did.
to- Everybody tell me when.
December 4th.
Oh, December 4th? Okay. I want to
Oh,
get
wait.
right, didn't want to screw up the dates.
Wait,
3rd?
let me check.
3rd, maybe? Oh, it was something that was in the morning. It was, I think it was the
So,
4th.
yeah,
No,
the
it is
4th,
the
it is the
4th.
4th,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's 6 o'clock. And when's the first meeting? We want them there on the 18th, is that the first meeting, or?
I had it in my email, and I can't
20?
remember.
Wait,
Yes, the,
the 20th? 20th?
our first budget meeting is sometime in
So the first one,
November.
the first budget meeting, I think, is at the board meeting in November, which I don't think we usually have the budget buddies
No.
come to.
Right, so they think they come on the 20th is the first one, right? Isn't the board
I have-
meeting on the 13th and
Yes, and then the
Oh,
next
October.
Monday, I think.
November?
18th?
November 18th.
Monday, the 18th.
Why don't I have that? Maybe I'll put it
And
in.
we're not doing it on the 26th, the next one's December 4th, and then December 9th. That's what I have.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just wanted to double check.
13, 18, 4, 9.
So the 13th is our regular board meeting, that I think we're just saying we don't usually have the budget buddies come to that one. No, we get them the information.
First budget.
So 18th, December 4th and December 9th. And then, is there a January one?
Yes, there is. There are 2 January ones. One
The 6th.
which we would like the budget buddies, and one where we simply adopt.
So the 6th is a Monday. That's a real meeting, and then the 14th is just the adoption of the articles. We don't usually ask them to come unless we're still debating. Thank you.
Yes. And any other names, send them to me. We'll get out a nice package to the budget buddies. You can tell any of them to call Jean if they want any explanation of
Or the dates.
how the process works or the dates. Or they can call me. I'm happy to talk with them. And again, it would be great to get someone from Heinsberg. Board goals, we didn't distribute them last time. We didn't really put them together in the normal way, but this year with board goals, it was so intuitive as to what we needed to accomplish this year that it really wasn't, we just kind of overlooked it. But there are now board goals, and if there are any comments, we can tweak them.
I don't tweet.
I'm looking at it,
Give me a break, you know.
this may not be a goal, but just, I don't remember if it's on the work plan. We were gonna have the security, building security.
We were gonna talk about that.
Because we Sean did a survey, and then we just never saw the results, I don't think.
I don't think we saw the results.
No, but and you're exactly right. So we'll put that on a future agenda.
Student safety, I forget how it was.
I was thinking about that in terms of the integrated health
Yeah.
Yeah.
that you were talking about.
This
We didn't catch it.
background after the killings at the school in Connecticut, I think it was.
Right.
26 elementary school kids or something like that. There was, last December, there was a big uproar about school security. And CVU looked into it, and I think we're still down to 2 doors that are open in the school as part of our security, but we were looking at various other things, and at some point going forward, we just need a report on where we are on school security and what we're thinking of doing.
It actually would be good, Jeff, while you're looking at it, if there's anything on there that needs budget, we should just know.
Actually, just make a note, and we'll, at the next agenda meeting, we can go over all the details that we'll need.
We've kind of felt as a school community that we watch out for each other. We don't, so far, as long as I've been on the board, we haven't been interested in cameras or,
No.
Well, and also
metal detectors and,
last year's town meeting day survey bore that out.
Yeah,
right, that's true.
Very
That's true.
strong.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
But we should have a discussion about it rather than
Yes.
just
Agreed.
assume we all.
Yeah. That brings us up to 6.4, turf field. And I'm going to pass it on to Jean, Polly, and Susan G., who are on the facilities committee.
Well, how much time do I have, Leah?
Well, we have 2 items left, and we have 15
You know
minutes.
what, we actually have, I didn't see getting out at 9 o'clock or 8:30 on the board goals, actually.
Would you
Actually,
like
we're
to
almost
add?
out of time. No, I don't, actually. We are almost out of time. We have less than a month before the vote, right? So, let's see. I'm gonna talk about communication and then a facilities, I'll start with the facilities committee meeting we had last week, which is Tom Barden, who was he wasn't our contractor, our general contractor, I guess, for the big, thank you. He went through and took all the work that the community committee had done with the cost of the fields and had worked it up in great detail. I mean, it was 20 pages, 7 columns, very, very solid piece of work. The number came out a little higher than we anticipated, but there were some things in there, some soft costs, like paying a general contractor kind of overseer people, and then there was some field, not field, but.
Discounting the second field by $100,000.
You missed that, yeah.
Yeah.
Some property improvement kind of things to go along with it, like paving the road that goes between our fields, that kind of thing, that, so it was a little higher than we anticipated, probably not out of the realm of, nothing that would say, we gotta start over, right? There's some optional things in there that will depend on the community fundraising, what we can afford. But all in all, I thought that was pretty good. It probably does say that if we only end up with, $500,000 of community fundraising between now and next summer, that it will be a little stripped down. We can still afford the 2 fields, we can still afford the ADA parking, we can still afford the things we absolutely need, but maybe not the press box, There are some things like that that'll have to go out. But that was a good meeting and made me a little more confident. I know it made Bob Mason a lot more confident that we had the right numbers, we work with the right numbers. So with that said, a couple of things going on in order to get out the information about the bond to the community. I guess a big thing is that the community group put in for a grant from the Burlington Free Press, which they do a Community Make a Difference Day, and you get $5,000 and people to help you with a project. And so they did get that grant, so the Free Press has granted the community group $5,000, and they're gonna help out on a Make a Difference Day, which is October 26th, Saturday, October 26th. They're having a big fun run, they call it a color run or a paint run. You run in white t-shirts and people throw paint at you. Apparently, this is what we do now. It's got a website, something cool. So Race Vermont is helping them, and the Honor Society, Athletic Leadership Council, and Key Club are all.
Yeah, a lot of our student clubs are volunteering at that event.
So, so that's going to be a big fundraiser that the Free Press is helping us out with. They're also, so the Free Press is paying for the coordination for the race, the costs of doing the race. And the other thing, Saturday, October 26th. I didn't write it down, sorry.
8:30.
We'll get you a white
Yeah,
t-shirt.
I believe it's
Okay,
8:30.
so we've decided we're gonna be on the paint throwing side.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody's gotta be on the other side.
Someone's got to throw the paint, you're right.
do it.
The other thing that they're using the money for, which I think is pretty neat and probably be pretty effective, you ever seen those little sticky notes that go on the front of the Free Press? So they're doing that for all of the ones in our area, and also the hometown flyer. I thought the hometown flyer was in the newspaper, but I guess it's some other thing.
Yeah, it comes up.
They sent it out separately to non-subscribers on Fridays.
Ah, that's what it is. So the hometown flyer will go to everybody, and then the next day it'll go. And then they also said the Free Press is going to write an article about the same time. So, I think that as far as getting the word out, there's going to be a lot out there. That's all from the community fundraising group, and so, as a board, we need to do something coming from the board as well. The biggest one is that we have Susan's struggling to, with a short deadline to put a flyer together. It's gonna be, is it gonna kind of look like our regular budget flyer?
But it's gonna be one page, both
Right.
sides, one page.
It's like that, right?
Right.
That is it.
That
That's
is
the
it.
text.
This
But-
is the flyer.
Well, no,
It's gonna
because
look
it's gonna
better.
take that amount of text and put on both sides, add some visuals. Color-wise, it'll match what we've done in the last 2 years for the budget flyer. It'll have the logo, so it'll have some graphic elements that carry it through, identifying it as a CVU piece, to anybody who remembers seeing something last February.
Yeah, so the questions basically are, why are we doing this, why 2 fields? Those kind of basic questions, I guess. So that's gonna go out in the local paper?
It'll be in the October 31st issues of Williston Observer, I can't get that out of my head. The Shelburne News, and most likely the Citizen, because we are too late for Heinsberg, and I have not yet heard back from Charlotte News as to whether we can make because they're in every other week, and I think we might be tight on that timing.
So there's 2 other sort of things. One is that we do, as David mentioned, we do have an official meeting that we have to have, and that's October 28th. That's our informational meeting. But in between there's a question of community forums. I'm kind of torn on them. I don't know how people want to handle them in their communities. I know Williston, I know the community group is having a forum in Williston on the 16th that they are doing. I mean, they have a really nice PowerPoint. You guys have all seen parts of it, right? That they're doing, and, you know, I would assume I would show up. I don't think I need to have another one, right? I don't know if other people want to have, you know, in the other towns want to have, work with the community group to put together a forum. I don't, have your own, just have a coffee hour. I can't read other communities, so I need help from everyone else to decide.
I thought
what
they were assigning like a person that lived in that community to get together for the forum, because Chris Long is our Williston community.
It's just that that's the only one I've seen, so I
Yeah,
don't know.
that's the only one I've seen too.
Are people comfortable with that? I mean, I could push on Kelly to see if each community, if we want to lean on them and just attend. I mean, there should be a joint board, you know, the board should be present in that kind of a meeting, but. Joan, do you have a preference? Or?
I haven't seen that they're doing that. I've seen conversations on front porch forums. I know they've done some event fundraisers.
Yeah, it shouldn't be a fundraiser, it really should be an
in town.
information
It should be
thing.
the information, so I've not seen any of that. I don't know what the plan is. The question I had with some of these coming out, like the 31st of October or whatever, are the towns doing the 30-day vote? You know, you can vote early
Yeah.
for everything else, and I don't know, I mean, we're the only thing on the ballot, and I don't know if that's, you know, come in, I've got, my daughter's working with them on alumni, and many will do absentee ballots. So I don't know if any of that,
I think
just as we're-
Heinsberg does have something else on the ballot. I think they have the rural zoning on the ballot.
Oh, okay. So then our ballot has to be separate, we're commingling?
Would have to be two separate pieces of paper.
Yeah, yeah, we gotta come back. So Jonathan's gotta, as our clerk, have the machines ready and everything. I mean, it's like a.
No, it's not gonna be machines, they're gonna be hand yes, no votes. They're gonna
But
be
the
hand.
machine reads them.
That's not my understanding, it's gonna be yes, no, and then you count them. That's what Deb told me. Yeah,
So we're not using the machines?
not using machines.
Oh, okay. But still commingled.
Yes.
Oh, it
We
has to
don't
be,
want
yeah.
ever to pit one community against another.
So I think what I'm looking for from people, and maybe if we can't decide tonight, you just need to let me know very soon, is as community reps, what do you feel, how would you like to be supported for an information session? And if you don't want to do one, if Charlotte doesn't want to do one.
Yeah, I would say, that I'm not real excited about doing one.
Yeah,
But I
maybe
would
not.
recommend that somebody from that committee,
Yeah.
who probably know a zillion more people than I do, I only know 1/2 of the population, or 1/3 of the population, do something on Front Porch Forum in terms of announcing the vote and talking about it a little bit, and maybe it, you know, you can look this up if you want more information, but something, because I think more people actually read Front Porch Forum that then would come to a meeting at Charlotte Central or here.
Well, we could always have somebody prepared on the 28th to do the presentation, should anybody show up. So if you think that's the best way to reach out to Charlotte, we could do that kind of outreach and just say,
We
if
can
you want more
invite them to
information,
come.
come the 28th.
Yeah, I
Right.
think that's good. I
I-
think that might help.
I think Front Porch Forum really reaches a lot of people, but it gives a venue
Yeah.
for open dialogue with no checks and balances of accurate information. And that's my fear
I know,
of
and
that.
I know it's
And
happening around the calendar.
Sure
It
is.
it is,
bad.
it's just, you know, I can hit send and I can say anything. I mean, my name is on there, but But there's not a lot of
Well,
accountability,
I
and
think-
that bothers me
I think
on
we can
something
invite
like
people
this.
to a
That's
That
forum.
wasn't, it wasn't
That's
so much I was
okay.
saying that, do you want to do one?
No.
But would you like somebody, does it make sense for me to bug the community group to put one together for Charlotte that you would attend? Is that,
I don't think they need to
You
come
don't
to
think so?
Charlotte for the 5 people that are gonna show up there. But I think you can invite.
Or announce the 28th.
Or the 20th.
I like that.
Yeah, I think so.
I would also suggest that if the community group is going to do, is planning to do forums in other
Yeah, I'll double
communities, let us know, because a local board member should be there. I'm happy to go as many days as I can.
Look at me.
let me find out and let everybody know, and the towns that aren't having something like that, we'll try to figure out a way to, and make sure people get the word to be invited on the 20th.
All right, thank you.
Because Speedway, don't we?
Oh, and if you want to buy a $100 ticket, you can win a Mini Cooper.
But I thought it'd be a conflict of interest if a board
I was
member
wondering
won,
about
so
that.
I didn't put my $100 in. I seriously thought about it.
Because we're only selling 500 tickets, I think.
That's why I put my daughter's name on it.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't want to put my son's
smart,
name because then it wouldn't be
smart,
my
good
car.
The next item on the agenda, 6.5, VHI proxy. First of all, who's going to the VSBA annual meeting?
I can't either, and I highly recommend it. I think it's really excellent.
You're our
Like,
two usuals.
I know.
I was trying to get there, but I figured you guys would go inside. I didn't get there.
Thanks.
Well, now you'll have to
Now I'm gonna have to rethink.
When is it?
24th and 25th, or 23rd and 24th? Is that Thursday, Friday?
Thursday, Friday.
It's like, yeah, it's a Thursday, Friday. And then, is it Wednesday evening, Diane Rabbit?
Diane Rabbit at
Is coming to Dartmouth, and that, I mean, if I could swing that, at least I'll probably try to go there.
Well, then-
Tomorrow.
I can't promise, though. I have to check my work schedule.
Well, then we can't do a certificate of authority because we're not gonna have anyone there. So the question is, do we want to appoint as our proxy the Board of Directors of the Vermont Education Health Initiative? So we now know exactly what VHI means. Do we want to appoint them to vote for us? And I would assume that we do, because they're going to rubber stamp what they've already decided to do anyway, and this makes sure that they have enough votes. Am I understanding this correctly? This is a vote for the
Slate of
for the
officers.
slate of officers, which,
And for the first time ever, you really should care about this, but they have a slate. But for the first time ever, there's going to be a whole lot more parity. In the past, it's been a very hugely teacher, Vermont NEA skewed board.
Yeah.
And now it's going to be 2, 2, and 1.
And what's the one?
One of them, VHI, one of the VHI people.
Are there any
So 2 from the
contested?
associate, and none of them are contested.
so the,
And that's all a result of the American Care Act and, the ramifications from that. So when they're putting the board together, they realized it needs to be more balanced.
will you folks authorize me to give our proxy to the VHI board to vote for the uncontested slate of officers?
Yes.
All right.
I'm willing to go out on a limb on that
It's
one.
almost possible, isn't it?
I can let Sandy know.
Okay, we're,
Yep, she'll take care of it.
we're done with that. I don't know who I give this to.
I will take it.
And you need to fill in the official name of our district, because I think it has a number at the end.
Yes, I've got another one of these, so I'll make sure that we do it right.
That takes care of 6.5. That puts us 2 minutes ahead of schedule.
Bravo.
So, next is item 7, action matters. 7.1 is none. Would anyone like to move?
So moved. Second.
we're done with action matters, because we already, we already gave the senior privileges. So we're gonna go on to the consent agenda, despite the fact that we're ahead of schedule. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Is there a second? Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. We have approved the consent agenda. Next meeting date, boy, we're moving. Next meeting dates, I'll leave you to go through the meeting dates, but I just want to remind you again, the Education Quality Standards public hearing is October 21 at 4 p.m. at CVU. And be sure to write down in your calendar that we have a special meeting on October 28 at 5:30. This is the information for the bond vote. And now I need a motion to go into executive session. We're going to, while we're in there, we are going to discuss, it's not on the agenda, student discipline, in addition to perhaps negotiations and personnel. Can I have a motion?
Second.
Second? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?